Don't you just love a puzzle? Without getting into the cable that just broke, even though it's brand new. We've got this cable coming up from the passenger compartment, which is lovingly brought over to here. We've got a spade connector out into the factory harness, into this blob of crap, which who knows where it goes. And then the other end of it is helpfully, swaps over to a white wire because, that makes sense. And then, terminates in nothing. So that's handy. But then also, we have the lovely ground. So we have this huge high gauge ground cable, which, is really well done. And you've got bare cable in there, at least it's a ground. This is just abandoned, no idea what it is for. Into another thing of giant heat shrink, which has running off of it this cable, which splits over to here, which again changes into at least one, if not two different cables till we get to red and white, which, as you can see coming over the bumper, unsurprisingly, goes to nothing. Then we have the other end of this cable, which is ground for the noise reduction, which obviously they put in because it was a problem from the alternator. But that brings us to the main power cable. Actually, it doesn't, because we now have this continuation of this giant ground cable, which goes into red, which is awesome, because we're also using red for the other piece of this ground cable. Nice. And the power, of course, is red. That's good. This comes up into the factory harness again with some more giant heat shrink, and that comes up into here, which is powering, I believe, the head unit. And then this goes up and provides ground for the amp, which is daisy chains over. Awesome. Then we have power in from the battery, giant cable, giant fuse, into tiny cable, noise reduction, which then powers back out through, again, more heat shrink and giant blob of solder or connector or something under there, to then more heat shrink, to then back up to that same connector providing power to the head unit, and then out here, which is awesome. It comes through. We've got a nice, properly done fuse. Always important to make sure everything's properly fused, which we then bring out here. And, oh yeah, that doesn't go to anything either. Sweet. One less thing to worry about. And then we have this power out here to another giant thing of heat shrink, to then this, which seems like a speaker cable, I think, but whatever. And it's, red at least because it's power. And then we get to this abomination of spade connectors, which splits power to both sides of the amp. Okay, well done. We also have this lovely modification to the factory harness, which has this connector here, doesn't go anywhere. And then these two come through and they go to the relay. And then the relay has a connection back out to ground, I believe. Yeah, this blue wire goes up into here. Maybe that's power. That's the power coming in, which is again out of the noise reduction. And then we have this one here firing out the remote turn on for the amps, which then splits here, which is lovely work, out to blue, which, oh, that's red. Yeah, and oh yeah, look at that. Doesn't go anywhere. But then the other end does come up over here from black through that heat shrink to red to blue. Okay, that turns on the amp. But we also have, I think we already did this one. Yeah, we did this one. This is the nice one that comes out of the passenger compartment. It's kind of hard to keep track of all the abandoned cables. I think I have 3 grounds and 2 powers. But they did put duct tape on it, so we don't have to worry about shorts. That's nice. Yeah, it's good stuff. I think I'm just gonna button this up as it is. It should be good.